You're a new lifter and you saw like, oh, Arnold bro split, 35 sets of chest a day or whatever they recommend. You may start strong, but then by the middle of the session, you're just going along the motions. Mm-hmm. You're not really there because you're already very tired and you've stimulated your chest more than enough.
Pak, earlier you called me. You were huffing and puffing, and I heard the distinct sound of the application of cream to human flesh in the background. But over your exhausted mutterings, I managed to hear that you wanted to rank muscle growth splits.
Yes. I've oiled up, and I'm here, greasier than ever, ready to rank stuff.
Excellent.
It's a good exercise. A lot of people tend to think in splits versus principles, which I don't get. I was never a huge fan of splits, like I'm doing this split or methods or anything that is just like set in stone that this exact configuration is better than this other configuration, because you can just look at principles and use scientific reasoning and see if something will work or not.
Well, so there are arguably three things you need to consider and no more for how to design a good split. Number one is, does your split give enough time for the target muscles between their sessions so that they can recover adequately to perform well again? The other consideration is, does it give too much time between sessions for targeted muscles that they already recovered, but you're just wasting time? Like if you train biceps once a week, it's just a really difficult argument to make that like they take that long to recover. So if you're training biceps with 18 sets every day, you might be just doing too much, and it's, hamstrings on Monday, hamstrings again on Tuesday, makes very little sense. So most of designing splits is getting that timing correct. And then there's an element of considering the third variable, which is interference. If you train heavy rowing-based back the day before you train legs on which you have squats, back might be a limiting factor. It's not ideal. And so interference effects like that should be considered. If you're training push, like chest, shoulders, triceps, maybe the next day is not good to train shoulders and triceps. Maybe you wait 1 or 2 days and then you can hit them again. Those are really, are you resting enough? Are you resting too much? And what's the interference effect? Are the only three considerations for training splits. The rest is down to how much volume you do per muscle group and exercise selection, everything like that. So that's all the principles, right? But you wanted to rank splits specifically because YOLO.
Because people will still think in splits.
Totally. So
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Split number one, the infamous, or actually famous and tried and tested, I guess, classic bro split, where you train each muscle group once a week. Well, theoretically, because you are training some muscle groups twice a week because you're using exercises that are targeting multiple muscle groups.
Yes.
Yada, yada, yada. Now, a traditional bro split will have somebody split their week, as the name implies, in different muscle groups. So they will do chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, yada, yada, yada. Now, personally, I think that obviously you're going to make gains. You're still lifting weights. You're still doing things. For some people, it can help them conceptualize lifting or like see things a bit more clearly. It's a bit more approachable. They're like, okay, all I need to care about is just going in.
It's very straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Chest.
7 exercises, plenty of exercise variation. So that's a potential plus where you're like, okay, chest is getting hit from every possible angle. You're doing high reps, low reps, heavy work at the beginning, whatever. Same for every other muscle. But I would argue that a big con of the bro split is that you are trying to do everything in one session, which one may limit the amount of productive volume you can do later in the session, especially if you start on the high end of volume recommendations, because you're a new lifter and you saw like, oh, Arnold bro split, 35 sets of chest a day or whatever they recommend. You may start strong, but then by the middle of the session, you're just going along the motions. Mm-hmm. You're not really there because you're already very tired and you've stimulated your chest more than enough. The other thing is that from a scheduling perspective, from a logistics perspective, I do think that, you miss the leg day. Then all of a sudden, unless you make some adjustment,
tough.
See you next week.
See you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday. Exactly. So all of a sudden, things become less flexible than if you had more frequency. Plus, although the direct literature shows that frequency does not seem to be a critical component for muscle growth, I am still a big fan of training things 2 to 3 times per week, so you have multiple chances to actually stimulate that muscle effectively and even make up for a missed session or whatever. So overall, where would you rank it? Flipped it.
The bro split's not terrible. For the average person, it's like C or B tier because it does train the muscles once a week hard, which is good for general gains. It does train the triceps and the biceps a little more if you do compound pushing and pulling for chest and back respectively. There's no discussion about muscles like side delts, which you cannot train hard enough to only be able to train once a week. So shoulder day is dumb because your shoulders can be trained every day, no problem. Definitely every other day for maximum gains. So your ability to summate quality volume over the week can be 3 or 4 times greater if you train shoulders with high frequency versus low. That's where the volume equated studies are inappropriate to conclude, because like if it's 10 sets on Monday, or if it's 3 sets on Monday, 3 sets Wednesday, 4 sets Friday, it's 10 sets either way, you get roughly the same growth, sure. But, you know, if you can recover well, like most people, then you can do 6 sets every one of those days, and all of a sudden it's 18 sets versus 10 sets, and you're going to get way more growth. So I think the bro split suffers from that. It's also not great for females and smaller lifters that can recover quicker and can't do as much damage. I mean, if you're female and you want the best legs you can have, legs once a week is preposterous. You'll recover at least for legs twice a week, often 3 times a week. So frequency really should be adjusted, like we talked about at the beginning of this, to like, are you recovered already? Okay, go again. And that's how you kind of answer that question. Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman might only be able to train back once a week because it could take them that long to recover. Most people are not that big and that strong and that old and pushing that kind of crazy weight and volume and everything. So yeah, I would say B or C tier. D tier if you're female and training smaller muscle groups, F tier even. And then if you are a pro bodybuilder who's enormous and really working on big muscle groups as a priority, legs, back, chest, it could be as high as B tier, and maybe, yeah, B tier probably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You find me in agreement.
I find you very agreeable looking in general. Less agreeable now. That scares me when you do that.
How's the neck looking?
Very Jason Genova-esque.
Oh, wow. They're going to go out in the comments. Shout out Jason Genova.
I don't know who that
shout
is.
outs.
I've just heard it from people in comment sections as a meme that probably wasn't funny as soon as it came out, but it's still not funny 10 years later.
They call us influencers, but where were they when we were Order 66ing Rich Piana's ex-wife in the comments back in the good day when he got slapped by Rich Piana? R.I.P. Rich Piana. Shout out Jason Genova. On to the next split, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So the next split is the full body split, where essentially, as the name implies, you're doing some variation of full body training every training session that you do, usually 3 to 4 days a week. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of specialization going on and a lot of overemphasizing on any muscle group on any day, although you can modify a full body split to do that.
Yeah,
but
you could.
Whatevs. Now, from my perspective, some positives. One, it lends itself really well to minimal effective dose training, especially
If you want minimal results.
if you want minimal results, but
But you're also lazy.
you are like,
I phrased that intentionally in the worst way possible.
thank you. If you're, let me rephrase it for the wolves out there. Like if you're grinding and you're there, stock market and shares and working 7 jobs and Uber Eats, DoorDash.
You got to get to the club.
You clubbing, but you're working at the club.
And working in 2 capacities.
You're partying and working.
The doorman, but you're also
You're a
getting
stripper.
and getting some side dish.
Everything. But it can lend itself well to, the busy individual who wants to get jacked but has 2 days a week to train and is like, I need to train everything, but I've only got like 2-hour sessions per week because I am fucking on the road the rest of the week. You can do well enough based on the latest, the big meta on volume. Like if you're hitting somewhere between, 8 to 12 sets per muscle group per week, you're going to see solid growth. It's not maximum growth likely, but you're still doing really well. So that's a positive. At the same time, there's a lot of variety, which can keep things fun for some people. That's not really a super evidence-based take, but as a practitioner, some variety in the sessions where, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. However, cons. You have exercises. You may have exercises in a session that are more fatiguing than others that will lead to the rest of the session sort of suffering. And then all of a sudden you've blasted your quads, hamstrings, erectors, and glutes because you've done squats and RDLs. And now you still have another 5 exercises for your upper body, some also involving your erectors because you're also doing some back work. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm going to do them, but that was RPE 8 and you're there just, semi-pressing the weight.
Mailing it in.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, if you want to emphasize a specific body part, if you want to prioritize something, a full body split does not really lend itself well to having an ideal sort of environment for that. Sure, you can modify it and have it be more arm dominant, but then something else will suffer, and then you may need to be consistently adjusting it and tweaking it, which is more effort than doing some form of other split. So overall, what would you rank it?
For the average person, B plus, because most people only lift a few times a week. Most people want kind of a whole body effect, and most people don't have the problem of being so strong and jacked and that they need to warm up a ton or they need to use crazy heavy weights that fatigue them a ton. So for most general population folks that just want to be fit and healthy and lift weights, I think full body 2 to 4 times a week is absolutely the way to do it. Also, a lot of those folks will recover so quickly in individual muscles, like they need their side delts stimulated 3 or 4 times a week to get their best growth so that they can do that. Yeah. And so I think, B tier comfortably for the average person. If you are really jacked and really strong, it's D tier because no one jacked and strong can really pull it off in an optimal way. If you think you can do justice to chest and back and legs in one session, I'd really love to see you try and then critique you for not doing a good enough job. It's possible, but highly unlikely, especially when I say, by the way, there's side delts and biceps and triceps left over and calves. You're going to be like, oh man, it's just a lot to do. The transitional point of warming up for an exercise, then having to warming up for another exercise, warming up for another muscle group, running around the gym to different implements and stuff. Sometimes it just, once you're in a certain position, you're in a certain machine, you're warmed up for that muscle group, you might as well crank out the sets. You can do so many sets that you won't recover the next day. So then you need to do 2 or 3 time a week frequency. And I think that's how for larger, stronger folks, splitting up things makes a little bit more sense. Obviously, the extreme of that is the bro split, which is too much of that. But somewhere in between, I think, is a split that for jacked people is probably better. Training muscles, an average of twice a week, I think is just real hard to beat if you're big and jacked and strong. You need a lot of connective tissue recovery, but also you need lots of work for each muscle multiple times a week.
Nice. Yep. You find me in agreement yet again. Wow, who would have thought? We're not biased here. But no, in all seriousness, I think that you also run the risk of even if you're super strong and jacked, you can use a full body split as a temporary solution, but for a couple of weeks when you're traveling, and you can maintain gains or still stay on the gain train. But as you said, long term, I don't think it's ideal, even if you only have 2 days to train. So I've released a 2-day split, and I've decided to not go full body specifically for those reasons. Awesome. Next up, the favorite or hated of the channel, push-pull legs. Is it dead?
You've been reading thumbnails again, haven't you?
I based my own thumbnail where I did that based on that, and that was a nice pass. Thank you. Who thought of the title?
Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
The young genius. Yeah, you're welcome.
Did you just call yourself the young genius in the third person?
The young genius.
Let me tell you what.
Neither young nor a genius.
He's quite smart, but not young. And you know what? I'm just going to save the young jokes for never.
Exactly.
A lot of jokes there I could make that absolutely do not qualify as YouTube material. Push-pull legs as stated, I don't love, and I'll cite Mr. Jared Feather for that. Doing pull before legs is kind of fucking backwards because your back is sore when you're training legs, and that really limits you.
Fair enough.
If your legs are sore when you're training back, that typically doesn't limit you. So Jared and I like push legs pull, or even pull push legs or something like that, or pull legs push or something. And the real big benefit of a split like that is, first of all, it solves the problem of trying to do too much in one session, but also solves the problem of not doing enough in one session. It's kind of a really cool intermediate between everything every day and everything just once a week. So for that, it really gets some gold stars. Another one is it's easy to do as an asynchronous split. So like, if you're not recovered yet, just take another day off. If you are well recovered, you can just cycle push legs, pull, push legs, pull, push legs, pull over and over. If you're traveling, you need to miss 2 days, no problem. It allows you to structure training in a way that's logically quite pleasing, muscles that pull all at the same time, muscles that push, no weird interference effects or anything like that. So I actually like it a lot. What I do is I almost always train with a split like that, but I use a modified push legs pull, which means that I recognize that muscles like side delts and biceps and forearms and sometimes calves for some people can just be trained more often than once every 3 to 5 days. And so what I'll do is typically for all of my upper body days, pushing and pulling, I'll do delts and biceps as well. That delts and biceps on push and pull day, and then a leg day in addition to that, to me seems to be a really good split that checks a lot of boxes. But I don't like to get too dogmatic. The other, saying like, well, it's because I've posted, chest and tricep and bicep day before, and people are like, why are you doing biceps on a push day? I'm like, well, other than the fact that you're a literalist idiot, I have no explanation for that. Why do I need to explain it? So it's kind of like, you show someone like a photo of your food and it's like a hot dog with chocolate milk. They're like, really? Dessert and regular food at the same time? You're like, I think you're losing your mind. So other than weird critiques like that, I think it's good. And another interesting critique is, or actually a failure of the push-pull split to account for this is, when do you do side delts? They don't push or pull. And last I checked, they're not part of your legs. So back to our earlier convo of like, it's all about arranging variables and making sure everything fits. You don't need to get dogmatic. But as far as dogma goes, push, legs, pull with a little bit of adjustment is, I think, A tier. And if you adjust it really well, I think it's S tier.
Respect. Exactly what I said in when I ranked those. But I think it's also a great split, again, with some adjustments, because one, the adjustments are very easy. Like you don't need to geek out over it. Even if you're somebody with very limited knowledge, you can just go, oh, doing legs after pull feels shit. Swip it, flip it, you're done. And at the same time, the odd few weeks here and there where you can't hit the gym 6 times per week, you can just do half of it and you're still getting plenty of stimulus to grow.
Yep.
To grow.
Maintenance.
Grow.
Maintenance. Oh, then we make out.
Yeah, I guess.
Of course.
I have to go make out because I can't fight you.
And I don't want to fight you.
So it's
I
like,
love to make out.
But the problem is my big okay, I'm not going to sidetrack it. But
that's what we're here. Now go. We're here to sidetrack.
The sidetrack would be like my defense if like I ever get cornered by a bunch of dudes that are very skilled in fighting, or even if they're not, I am banking on pulling my pants down
easy
and acting crazy, maybe shitting myself and then peeing at the same
shitting
time.
yourself, that's for sure going to solve the problem.
But you get the one guy that either the one guy that will ego it to the max and be like, no, motherfucker, I'll still get you.
Yep.
Or you get the freak and then you don't only get fucked up, but maybe something extra on top. And you're in your own shit and piss.
Someone's like, how you doing? You're like, I got a fist fight. Like, how did you do? You're like, I considered it a victory. I threw my own feces at someone and they ran away. You're like, wow, is that a victory?
But like, there are cultures out there, especially fighters, that they would, like, I think they would turn around and start running the moment you pull down your pants. They'd be like, nope.
Oh yeah. Well, also, like, actually trained fighters almost never get into street fights because what the hell is the point of that? Like,
yeah, fair enough.
How dare you insult my ego? They're like, well, I train at this gym. Do you want to come sign a waiver? You're like, but no, I don't want to do that. Like, all right, well, we'll just be friends then. Unless you want to get body slammed into concrete, which is really what happens in street fights.
Yeah.
Throw away your notepad and your Excel sheets. The RP Hypertrophy app has all of your workouts displayed in one place with guided videos on exercise techniques and a program that evolves to better suit your needs the longer you use the app. All you have to do is follow the plan right on your phone and get the gains. Click on the link in the description of this video to get started. Do we have any more body slamming and concrete to do? Are there any other splits that we want to talk about?
There's upper lower. What
do you think about upper lower?
Yeah, so I think it's a solid split, usually 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Upper, lower, break, upper, lower. But again, there may be a bit less space for you to prioritize things or have enough variety. I think it's a very solid split for anybody who's just a regular dude who wants to just build muscle and be strong, yada, yada, yada. But for many of the freaks that consume this sort of content and enjoy training very hard, it may be a bit difficult to really hit everything super hard when you just have a couple of days for upper and lower muscles. That's with a asterisk next to it. I mean it somewhat lightly. Like, I think you can still make amazing gains. I'd still rank it pretty high, like A tier. But I think a modified push-pull leg split, as we talked about, that can be S tier, maybe slightly better on paper for those people. But still, push upper lower, you're still training things twice a week. You can still make adjustments to fit everything in a smart way, but it may require a bit more fiddling, if I may use that word.
I love it. You said it all, man. I think A tier, B plus tier, I think it's great. I would say the upper lower split is a good analogy for it is your uncle, right? My uncle, everyone's uncle. He never said much, but he got a good skilled trades job. He never missed a day of work. He was never late. He did a good job. And he raised a goddamn family by himself. And what are you ever going to take away from him? How dare you criticize Uncle Bill, or in your case, Uncle Mykonos or something?
Uncle Mykonos. How about
Uncle Kyriakos?
Hey, shout out Grizzly. Yeah. Edit something. I don't know. Do you even edit these? Scott's like, fuck, man. Just wanted to export the fucking video. I gotta edit shit now.
I read an amazing comment on our channel. We did a video with this very nice young gentleman, Aiden Sade, who is like one of the smallest waists ever. Like a 20, what is it, Scott? 24-inch waist or something? Something absurd that shouldn't be on a human being, but is. And this one comment on our channel, like, people loved it. They loved the video, lots of views, lots of positive comments. One comment was, all of that work to look nothing like Kyriakos Grizzly. What a waste. I laughed out loud when I read that. Rarely do I get zinged by comments.
And greater risk of all-cause mortality than you and I. Where's your tiny waist now, huh? The fatos are back. We're taking it back, baby. I know it's an effort. I'll do it myself.
I'm too fat to reach.
That's fine.
The boys are back in town.
But that was a good analogy, though, because that uncle like gets love, but you're not like, it's not the topic of discussion at the table.
He's never like, people don't brag about how he went to Harvard. People will say he won the Olympics. He did what had to be done. His kids were fed. They were clothed. No, he didn't talk to his kids much. He just read the newspaper and grunted a lot. But by God, food was on the table. Rent was paid. School books were purchased. And damn it, you should be thankful. And you know how he trained? He didn't train. But if he would have trained, upper, lower, baby. Clock Blast. In, clock out.
Indeed. So I'm going to group all these now so we don't spend 5 hours here, contemplating other things. 5-3-1, 5x5, dog crap, bull crap, whatever. All the modified strength training routines that includes, I'll put starting strength in there as well. Like anything that is strength training related, but comes with this sort of false promise that that's all you need as a beginner or intermediate because it ticks the basic boxes. Therefore, you shouldn't specialize because, you want to specialize? No, you shouldn't do these specific lifts and do this other type of training for another quality, but that will also cause muscle growth, but it will be simple and it's just like a mess. What do you think? I'll say what I think, actually. Yeah, I saw that look in your eyes. You were like,
I thought you did just say what you think.
Exactly, but I have more to yap. Or do I? Am I trapped here? No, I want to say that I'm not a big fan of you got to focus on the compounds and the basics to build the base.
Yeah.
It's again principles. You don't need to do barbell low bar squats or sets of 3 or 1 to build strength as a foundation. You can just go in the gym, do any compound exercise that targets the musculature you want to target, tick basic boxes like getting a deep stretch, yada, 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 get stronger over, 5 to 15 rep range, and you're good. You're going to build as much of a base as anybody else. Sure, if you're an athlete or whatever, but for the
Totally different concern.
totally different, but for the average person or not average person that wants to get jacked, doing a modified strength training routine, unless you care about strength as well, it doesn't make sense, and it's likely that you are leaving some gains on the table, neglecting important muscle groups for looking jacked, which we'll get to as well. And overall, you are trying to get maximally jacked by doing things that are not going to get you maximally jacked. So you're working against yourself in a way.
Yeah, I agree fully.
Yeah.
Dogma sucks. Sometimes it's simple so people can follow it. There's nothing wrong with 531 that more volume and exercises and a totally different split can't fix. I'm kidding. The first two are true. It's okay to start with one of the basic splits, but eventually you're going to want to emphasize some muscles over others. Eventually your fatigue is going to catch up to you and you realize low bar squats aren't goated. And you'll get there, but I have no problem with people starting these things. It's just when they get dogmatic about them, like, really, man, why don't you do 5x5? I'm like, you know what you're going to do is do one set of getting the fuck out of my face. And then I wake up and I realize I've never spoken to another person like that out loud. Though I have gotten quite curt with my cats, but they don't understand me or care.
Or exist.
Or exist.
You heard it here first, folks. Yep.
How dare you disparage my imaginary cats.
So I would rate all those routines as a D.
D. Damn. I'd say C for beginners. C for beginners. And for advanced folks, like F, because what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, but even for beginners, I'd be like, why spend time learning or like committing to something when you can just still learn how to squat, but in a hypertrophy sort of context? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Whatever. That was it. I had also Mike Mentor or any sort of famous bodybuilder's routine, but I think people can infer.
And if they can't, it's really simple. You have to adjust the routine to your own body and your own needs. If it took Mike Mentor 18 years to recover from a back workout, sweet. One back workout, 18 years for him. But if 3 days later after your back workout, you're fresh as a pickle, it's time to train back again.
Shout out Mike Mentor. R.I.P.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.